Yo, what's up, everyone? I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do try to stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, but fear not if you ever miss the live show. It's always uploaded under the YouTube channel of Zenitsu, as well as being on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. So feel free to do that whole social media doobly-doo thing and leave that rating, like, follow, subscribe, review, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast, or at least we like to think it does. So today I am back with Guardian, and we're going to be talking about ban and restriction predictions. So this isn't going to be talking about anything coming off the list per se, it's just things that we feel like should probably go onto the list. Things coming off is like its own huge discussion. So we might save that for another video or just exclude it entirely. We'll play it by ear. But that's essentially what we're going to be doing today. Because this is definitely going to be a very spicy topic, especially for a lot of people, because we all have our own opinions, and our own opinions reflect our own personal experience, and other people's experience will vary. So that's what makes it a little bit spicy, because everyone has their own hot take, essentially. So before we get into that, we have the comment of the week. So if you want your comment read, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below, and we can potentially read it off for next week's video. So this week, the comment of the week is brought to us by Bad Wolfie, 9801. So they stated that since listening to the podcast for a couple of weeks now, they now fully understand the power of OTK and committed to it, just like I have. Don't know if that's actually a good thing or a bad thing, but I digress. And them playing OTK decks that basically kill and end the game on turn 3 is really stressing out their friends. They put a smiley face on it. And then they also acknowledge that deck thinning is deck winning is such sage advice. That came from my good old-fashioned designer buddy Mark, who lifted that from Magic the Gathering, because that was a very common phrase, at least like for the sealed and limited environment. But it kind of just applies to all card games. The faster you're able to see all of your cards, the more likely it is you're going to be able to put all the pieces you need to in order to win the game, to win the game. But yeah, so just OTKs or just high damage decks is generally my preferred playstyle, just because I like being very aggressive, and Digimon definitely rewards the aggression that they actually support and provide within the game. So I'm glad that they're having fun stressing their friends out, but I wouldn't necessarily 100% dedicate yourself to OTK decks, because trust me, I have lost locals over that. So just read the room, I guess, in terms of when to pull it out and then when to not, I guess. So showing some restraint is definitely a good idea, but glad you're having fun. So with that comment out of the way, because last week we didn't really have any questions, so I just picked the comment that stood out the most.
Understood on that one.
Yeah, and it's not like everything needs to have a question in order to have a discussion. So, speaking of that, you actually participated in a case tournament, Guardian?
Yep, it was a case tournament for EX11, which, comparing back to our video with the predictions on our tier list, some decks were right on the money, some were completely off, and some were just slightly off. One of which I played myself, which is the Vortex Dramon. We thought that this thing would be meta developing. On the other hand, it actually isn't. It has a lot of weaknesses that actually prevent it from being meta breaking. Don't get me wrong, Vortex Dramon is still one of, if not the strongest card currently in that set, but it is not where we thought it would be. It is
So
definitely a tier down. To
so
where,
EX11 was legal for the event, right?
yes,
Okay. And you took Vortex?
yep.
So, what were some of the decks that you played against? And while playing the deck, what were some things you noticed that the deck was struggling on?
The deck struggles on its consistency ratio. While it does have a lot of cards that equal out to its consistency, it has a lot of problems with it at the same time because there are two different searchers for the deck in the form of BT24 Muchomon and the starter deck Pateromon, both of which work very well with it. On top of the fact of you have the new EX11 Shoto, which anytime you suspend one of your guys will get DP and give you a draw. So I was just having trouble with trying to get the pace up against the current decks. I faced against a Beelzemon that quite literally, because I forced a battle immediately, caused them to swarm and end me quite a few times on that. Not to mention their ability to snipe me with options kind of made it a little hard to fight it, especially with seventh full cluster.
Yeah, I
Against
mean,
the
option removal is always going to be relatively important, but not every deck actually right now has access to option removal.
Agreed. Right now, the main ones that are probably doing that are the Demon Lord decks, like Beals, Belfi, Lovaya. Even Mao itself has access to those options, like straight off the bat.
Hoodie
But
has
loose,
them too, and so does Time Strangers. So those are definitely two very popular and very powerful decks coming from BT24. That definitely I can see keeping Vortextramon kind of more in check and in his place.
so that's where kind of, but kind of not, because the all the TS decks there were not playing the options. They were playing the standard package of the security option to give Alliance for whatever Digimon they were using,
Okay.
and the in between theater.
Okay.
That was
Fairly
pretty much
standard.
their extent.
Yeah, because they're just easier to use than passing, especially for free, instead of passing over a lot of extra memory to get a bigger removal option to use for free.
Yes. Now, there were some also ruling texts that actually helped me understand Vortex a little bit better. Like in the match against Royal Knight, it actually has a really good matchup into it because
Into
of the fact of
Vortex?
yeah, Medieval Gallant single-handedly just keeps them on their toes, and if they leave a body that just allows them to swing without being absorbed into King Drossil, then it's just an immediate fodder for Vortex to swallow up.
Yeah, I mean, I
'Cause-
would think that Vortex would have a good matchup into Royal Knights because of that.
yeah, and that was the only game I really won on that one. Then I went up against the Ice Snow. Holy hell. That that was completely nuts on that one. Okay, I did mess up on it because we didn't have that many rounds, and this was like round 3, E/4. They quite literally were able to strip my sources and make it to where I can't move because of Hexablow.
So, my question is how are they able to strip your sources? Because technically, Vortex should be pretty much immune at almost any given
No,
moment.
it is they were stripping the sources through the effect of the tamer.
Oh, that's right. Their Tamer does it.
And the moment that I was a source down from the Hexa, I could no longer swing, suspend, losing all protection.
Yeah, and then I guess because you're also your removal with vortexes by battle, if you have less sources than any of their ice clads, you could just accidentally kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see
Not,
it.
yep. Not to mention they were using the EX11 egg for it, which if I had Digimon with no sources, they just swung straight in. So the moment they got it to where I couldn't swing or activate Vortex at all, they literally just waited a turn, stripped the remaining sources, and clashed right into it.
Okay. And then I could also see the play line of like a early turbo Hexablow just removing your tamer, and then that just actually does a lot of work against you setting up your stuff more consistently and efficiently.
Considering that Vortex is so tight on its tamer count, removing the tamer was the hardest blow to it.
Yeah, when I was testing rocks and minerals into Vortex, that's why I really actually like the new Pyramidi, is because if they're on an empty board and I'm committing something because I know something's going to be coming out and I need to try to like counteract what they're trying to do, um, I found out that um, popping their tamer before they could do anything was incredibly strong.
Yes, it actually hurt them quite a lot because if they only have the one tamer, they don't want to waste time trying to get out another.
Right. I mean, they have the ability to do it, but they're not playing that many tamer setters, I can't imagine, because you already have a lot of
They
good level 4s.
the only tamer setter that's really being played is the Galemon from the set, which says if it spends at all, any Digimon suspends at all, play a Shoto.
Yeah, that card's kind of nuts.
It
Well,
really
you have
is,
to
and
you have to
you're able
suspend one
to.
of your tamer or your Digimon to play the tamer, but it could suspend anything, so it gives it good late game opportunity to still do something versus the
Mhm,
old one which couldn't.
indeed, and with the effect of the Gale or the Grand Gale and the Safaga of the set, you are able to do that consistently. But the problem is actually being able to get up into it at that point.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people are on like different eggs right now for Zephiga. I personally like the draw egg with the Kokomon. I know some people like to play in archetype and they're running the in archetype egg, which I think just gains you a memory, which isn't bad either. Which one were
It
you
isn't bad.
using?
I was using the Kokomon,
Okay.
and that's the one that has the most consistency if you're able to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. So you faced Royal Knights, you faced BLs, and you faced Ice and Snow. What else did you face, or was that pretty much it?
That was the extent of everything I faced, man. Because of ice and snow just made it to where we could not move.
Yeah, I know. I could see that. Ice and Snow also can hit a little bit harder, just because they have like more tech to be able to utilize. Because I know they have unsuspend and I know they have security attack plus. They could stop your wind digivolvings from happening. Like I think Ice and Snow, while it's not the greatest right now, I think it's in a better position.
We
Uh
definitely slept on that when we did the tier list.
yeah, my one of my locals peeps was playing it, and unfortunately like against a lot of the other like high level meta decks, it still really wasn't able to do much of anything. But I think maybe it goes to like build dependency where it's just like you really have to tech and cater your build for the specific meta that you're going into, and having a generalized build for something like Ice and Snow isn't really going to take you very far, but it could still be a competent deck.
Indeed, I'm not gonna diss it at all. I have learned to put respect to its name on that one.
Yeah, in my personal testing, like just to kind of give an example of like tier list shifts, I probably would bring Dinomon down after playtesting the deck and playing against the deck. It's not nearly as good as I thought it was. I thought it was way better, but the situations where the new Dinomon is good is like very, very niche, and the new tech really doesn't actually help the deck because his technology is just muddied, like between a whole bunch of like different things. Like, there's just not any good cohesive ability to actually use the cards the way you want to. Um, so I think like that definitely harmed my perspective and experience seeing that deck. Just to kind of like give an example of like, okay, we could probably like adjust Ice and Snow going up, but as a result, we could also probably think about taking something like Dynamon and adjusting it down based on our tier list. But tier lists are never perfect. It's just a snapshot and opinion. As far as like what we were understanding the cards to do, and now we're actually getting into the weeds of EX11.
And that brings out to a lot of problems that I've been seeing when we were at this tournament the other day.
What kind of
Yeah.
problems?
So within the actual current metagame, there are stuff that needs to be hit. Like currently, one of the big ones is actually the promos for Time Stranger. They are too viable.
What do you
I'm
mean by
referring to
viable?
the Patamon, the Gomamon, and the he Devi. They are what's a good way to phrase this? Uh, too strong. The fact that
They're
if you're
definitely
under
incredibly
four,
strong.
yeah, I've seen the winner of the list from that event was on the Sylvia engine, and they were turn two killing like a hootie.
I think the promos are definitely really strong. The balancing act for them, if you could even call this balancing, is the fact that they're not Iliad. Um, and we've already seen rookies being able to digivolve for free, and it seems like Bandai's totally okay with that at this point. Be considering what BT14 Patamon, BT14 Agumon have been left alone. I mean, granted, one of them's an Agumon, and like Greymon decks
Yeah,
have
that
not been
brought me to
viable.
the other. That actually brings me to the other culprit of BT14 Pata, which actually does deserve to get a hit. It's been
I've been saying
viable a
it
little
for
too long.
I've been saying that for a long ass time. I hate everything about BT14 Patamon. Um, just the speed and efficiency of this card is just nuts because unlike the Time Stranger promos, if this card does get a free evolution, then you're actually netting a memory. So you're going +1 on a free evolution. So I think that's just absolutely nuts. I mean, granted, yes, you have to have
And
the RNG of setting up your security, but I mean, it's just such an easy card to use to just get a free
especially
evolution.
for something like Mastimon, which can just set up the security however it wants at any point, or Great Angels.
I think part of Patamon's problems also stems from just Mastimon in general. Um, because we're now entering this like weird era where it feels like DNA decks are just some of the best decks we could humanly possibly play. Because you look at Time Strangers, it has Sylphimon that it uses to an absolutely absurd degree. Granted, there's not a lot of inheritables that you're reusing to be able to make that card insane, but let's not pretend that it doesn't have that potential. Then we also see Shakamon with Hoodie, and the fact that Hoodie could just loop its stuff over and over again, and the fact that DNA's reset the state of the Digimon means that you could use every single inheritable all over again. And Patamon's being memory generation does help accelerate and enhance combo play.
hmm That's
So
why it's one of the current criminals due to my own deck and my own fault on that one. Because the fact that Mastimon can literally just go, cool, I hit started at Gato, immediately net +1 into that. Digivolve that same one into one of the 11s, spit out its opposite, gain that one back. I haven't moved the memory gauge really all that much. Oh look, I'm gonna DNA immediately into promo, which is actually where I'm gonna be going in here in a minute. And then promo does it all over again, where you get the memory and the draw.
what, you want promo Mastimon gone?
I want it hit. Honestly, I love the card, but for this solidity of the game, it needs to be hit.
I I mean, Mastimon has literally never been competitive up until this very moment. I don't disagree with the fact that promo Masty could get hit. Um, because I do think like out of all of the Masties, this is by far clearly the best one. I don't know if it's better just to hit engine cards rather than hitting their core Masty. I mean, yes, granted, they do have other Masties that they could play. They have Masty
Well,
Ace, they have CS
the
Masty, they have the original, not the OG Masty, but the OG DNA Masty.
well, the reason I'm saying hit the engine card and that is because the engine card is not just in Masty. It's in a number of other decks that use it and abuse it. The actual Masty hit would have to be the promo because of what it does.
Okay, so you would rather just leave the majority of the engine alone, like the Murais and the
Yeah,
the Angelwomons and the Lady Devies. Yeah, those are okay to stay, but just taking out their best top end piece, you think would help Curve Masty to be
oh, no
more
doubt.
normal?
No doubt on that. Because the simple fact of that card is a turn. If you don't handle that card is a turn after turn spawn of bodies. And they've made it to where its only real way to get rid of is either is just by straight digivolving it.
Uh I don't entirely disagree. I mean, it doesn't have partition, like thank God, but it's still an incredibly strong card. Um Tamer removal right now is probably going to be one of the most important things, and this card very easily has like some really good passive Tamer removal.
I can speak from experience. I have sniped many tamers using her.
Yeah. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a Masty expert, but I definitely think something from Masty probably is primed to be removed. And again, I don't know exactly what. I would have to ask like a more dedicated Mastimon expert in terms of in-engine cards, but I'm
And I'm
totally
right here.
okay. I, like, I'm talking more like Sean, I think, who got like
Oh
top
no,
8.
no, Sean. Yeah, Sean is definitely one that would have some opinions. I would love to hear him talk on because some of the stuff that he brought up during his top eight, I'm just like, okay, I'm using that. I'm not using that. I see the reason for that. And what are you doing there?
Yeah, it was really funny that he was running the Mummy Mons, literally just because it says on play Digivolve and nothing
Yeah, and
else.
immediately after that video was released, you just see the foil Mummymon from 10 just get bought out. It's like,
Well,
really,
so
guys.
so it's kind of funny because like Ben for Rocks and Minerals, which Rocks and Minerals definitely needs to get hit in some capacity. Not going to say he's not committing war crimes himself, but Ben was running Justimon to hose on delayed options and then have some like insane immunities and gain an extra free attack at times. So like while it seemed very odd in looking in the list, it like actually made a lot of sense considering what was in the meta is just a metric fuck ton of delay options. So having one of the easier ways to be able to get rid of delay options um, seems like a very good idea in my prospect. I personally wouldn't have risked running Justimon, but obviously, as we've seen with Sean and or Ben, sometimes those little bits of tech can really um, expand what the deck is capable of doing in terms of turning it from just something okay to now I'm going to top 8 the US Nationals.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that Sean pointed out the fact that that Mummymon is 6K, a purple, and able to be played off of any of your Massymon that's not the ace. just pointed out the fact that a lot of us Massimon players do overlook some of the more powerful but not in our type cards.
I also think because of that highlight, it just leads Mastimon to be a ripe deck to kind of limit level 5 design for yellow and purple as a whole. Um, because of the fact that it's like super easy and generic and like, okay, now just to try to not fit inside the Mastimon mold, now they have to start changing every single level 5 yellow and purple to be above 6k. But we've seen in the past that sometimes just having any level 5 that they can use is incredibly strong, because at like an old-timey fashion, like using the Wayback Machine of BT8, they were using the old Masty to spawn out Lucimon Chaos mode.
We were being war criminals back then, and it
Yeah.
was fun. But now that is another option that is able to be played out with using the CS. So it's possible that if the promo does take a hit, they will go back to said engine of using the old starter deck. So
They
it's a possibility.
they kind of already were. Like, people have been playing around with CS Engine, and people have also been playing around with Dark Animal Engine, but like, as Sean very clearly showed, if you're really good and know what you're doing on just a more traditional Masty list using the Gato stuff, which the starter deck stuff does fall in line with that, then it could take you incredibly far. And like, that's kind of why I think like Patamon should go, is because like accelerating pretty much every yellow deck just seems like an incredibly poor idea, because this card's also being abused in Time Stranger decks, because again, it just allows you to digivolve into Aegiomon, and then you're gaining a memory for digivolving into Aegiomon for free, and because you're yellow, you could try to rig your security a little bit. Even
And then,
though
it immediately
Aegio's...
activates going into AGO chess.
Yeah, so like, with the right setup, you literally just basically digivolved into a level 5 and gained 1 memory. Like,
Mhm.
that's kind of insane in my perspective, and that's the speed barrier in which a lot of decks right now are kind of feeling like they're operating under. Um because of, again, like what I was harping on before, the problem with the training cards more specifically is because they're so easy to use and they accelerate pretty much every stack based deck. But as a
Which,
response... Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, finish up.
Oh, yeah, and as a response, they had to basically design cards that are equivalent to that for pretty much everything, and they have to understand that that is the current speed barrier, so if your deck not able to play any of those cards, you need to move just as fast, so they incidentally caused a lot of hyper-accelerated power creep because of the memory efficiency being so much lower.
Yep. Of which, let me ask you this. Do you think that trainings should get hit?
I always think that the training should get hit, but unfortunately, I'm still working on this video, but, or at least the video idea, um, of the, staple pyramid. And unfortunately, the training cards fall under the very bottom of the pyramid, which is the global or world level, staples. So these are cards that are purposely put into the game to try to recontextualize and redefine how the game is fundamentally played. And a lot of things are warped because of these cards' existences. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worst. Um, Obviously, I'm a big fan of memory boosts more specifically because the cost evaluation of those cards seem more reasonable to me, versus trainings where that seems unreasonable when they're trying to fulfill the same goal. But because we have the ability to run both, that helped cause the consistency of Digimon decks to go kind of just through the roof.
Agreed.
But because they're in that world level staple lineup, um, I don't think they're going to get touched ever, which is very unfortunate because out of memory boosts and trainings, I would literally just rather see the trainings just go bye-bye. But at this point, the damage is already done, and they've already designed equivalent cards to those. And cards that are statted very similarly to those cards. So it's just, unfortunately, we just can't. We can't go back. Pandora's box has already been opened. So there's no sense on hitting them as much as I hate them.
Which is understandable on that.
Yeah. So going back to talking about nationals and Ben's list and rocks, it's very obvious what one card we all just want gone from rocks. It's like incredibly painfully obvious, and that's going to be Tumblemon from BT or EX8. This card's just stupid. It's so nuts. And as we kind of alluded to with Patamon, like, one memory actually means a very, very lot. It's literally game breaking on how much you can do for one memory and what one extra memory means to a lot of decks.
On top of the fact that this thing can just be constantly recycled and reused mid Evo by close makes it really too strong for an egg.
And then we also got the new Sunarizamon, which when you move out, you get to pitch a source in order to draw a card. So it's just like, okay, I'm going to move out, pitch the Tumblemon, draw a card, gain a memory, use close, shove it back in, and then just keep the engine going. So now we have higher levels of usability to make even just using one Tumblemon that much better.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2 is better than 1, but having one Tumblemon definitely is probably going to be one of the biggest things to help slow down rocks. I don't think it's going to, like, kill rocks outright. Rocks can still do some egregious...
Rocks outright is hit both the Tumblemon, the EX8 Pyramidy, and the Magnetic all at the same time.
I don't think they're going to hit the EX8 Pyramidy. Like, if there's any levels...
I don't see them hitting it either, but if you hit the Magnetic, they're going to fall back on the EX.
Yeah, but that keeps the deck somewhat still playable within the archetype that Bandai has labeled it. Like, Bandai very clearly... here's the stuff, like, the really stupid part. Bandai labeled Rocks and Minerals as an OTK deck. So they basically designed everything to work exactly the way it's supposed to work on how we've been playing it. So just the pre-canned version of the deck, for the most part, is already some of the most optimal things that you can do, and it's already one of the best OTK decks in the entire game. I'm not saying it's the best, it's just one of the best.
No, just tip that crown right there straight to Duraco and its archetype.
There's a lot of OTK decks in the game currently, because I was testing out Puppets OTK, which I should have a deck profile on that if you haven't checked that out. We just got Time Strangers OTK, there's Rocks and Minerals OTK, there's just a metric butt ton of OTK decks. Fishes can OTK. So, and the scary thing is the majority of these OTKs happen literally by turn 3. I personally...
Cough, cough.
Yeah, I personally feel like when we hit consistent turn 2 OTKs, or just even in general, this deck has the possibility to turn 2 OTK with a reasonable amount of memory given, which I would say at this point reasonable is 3. So if a deck can turn to OTK with minimal setup with only 3 memory, I think that is problematic, to say the least.
It's not healthy for the game at all.
Yeah, because now we're hitting into Fenri Lucamon Takamikazuchi territory, because he was also an OTK deck that has a high roll chance to OTK as early as turn 2, because the deck fundamentally ignores the memory system of the entire game. DNAs and how much memory generation we do have kind of feel very reminiscent of that.
Not denying that at all.
So I guess, like, while we're on the topic of DNAs, we could talk about Hoodie, because there's a couple of things that people want gone from Hoodie, and there's only two logical answers. So I know the first one people default to is Chitose. No, Chitose is
No,
not the answer.
you could
They
hit Chitose and it still would be running rampant because they only ever need one.
Correct. And the fact that they also have alternative ways to play out their Digimon to set up their DNA, really, like, Chitose is obviously the easiest one to do it, but as we saw with Nationals, you don't even need Chitose. There were games that Hoodie was winning without Chitose in play and Chitose in sight. So, like, Chitose is very much not the answer in terms of that. People have been suggesting choice restricting the rookies, which is also wrong in my opinion, because we literally just got Digilab, which does the exact same thing, which tells me Bandai intentionally planned for, like, they were aware that Hoodie was able to do this. Like, that's what it reads to me when they printed a card like Digital Lab. Because otherwise, why print it? I mean, like, yeah, there's the old CS deck that literally never done anything, but they were already maxed out on that type of ability, so they don't need any more of it. So choice restricting the rookies from Hoodie just says, okay, I'm just going to run Digilab, and then nothing was, like, literally nothing was lost.
Yeah, it just felt like a hand slap. That's all it ever felt like.
Right. I think, like, one of the more correct answers is Hoodie herself. But considering she's a secret rare, she's not likely to get hit. But obviously, Hoodie is the one doing all of the Hoodie degenerate things to begin with. So, like, it's the most obvious and easy one. But then again, like, you kill Hoodie, and you kind of just kill a lot of the viability of the deck. I'm not going to say it's not entirely viable, because I've built, like, budget Hoodie decks that don't use Hoodie. Also made that type of a video on my YouTube channel, where you could still use Hoodie as, like, this really toxic degenerate engine to still facilitate a lot of different things. It's just obviously you're going to have to tech and tweak the deck around that concept.
Yeah.
But without Hoodie, it loses a lot of its power, which probably is what it should be. But obviously, if they want to keep Hoodie as playable as possible, the card
They
that they're
need to leave
most
her alone,
likely,
sadly, at that point.
yeah, the card they're most likely going to hit is going to be the CS Shakamon, because in order for you to do the whole loopy doopy things, it does have to be a level 5 CS traded Digimon, and this is the only level 5 DNA CS. So limiting this card to 1 means that it dramatically reduces the consistency on being able to loop with Hoodie. They'll still be able to technically do it once if they see the CS Shakamon, but this would force them to just use other generic DNAs, which might not sound like a problem, but it just means that Hoodie is going to shift from looping DNAs into just being a DNA facilitator and playing pretty much any DNA that they could run. And then just run generic top ends, which, as we've seen with Galaxy, you're just gonna run a couple of floodgates to tell the opponent go take a hike. You're not playing the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Hoodie has so many colors and has so many potential DNAs that they could still at least kind of abuse, would keep the deck somewhat playable. It would just shift the deck. So I think this is the more logical hit, even though the actual objectively correct answer is just to hit Hoodie herself.
Just obliterate her.
Yeah, because
That thing with Exodia.
when I was playing with the deck, I really kind of wanted, like, I was on the Kisuke hype train in terms of like get this tamer out of here. Because this card's objectively gross as well, but he's like there's too many moving parts in Hoodie to reasonably be able to objectively look at one and say that is exactly the problem when they're all kind of just working in tandem being this hyper toxic and degenerate thing. Because even if you take out Kisuke, you still have Erica, which is doing something similar. It's not setting up your tamers for free, snowballing value, but it's still removing a body from your field off the field that would just end up dying. And it's allowing you to reset. So, like, I don't know. Hoodie is in a very awkward position because there's not objectively one wrong or right answer. It's just what is the more likely answer that they're going to do to address the deck based on the current problems. Because honestly, I think if they keep Hoodie and they take out Shakamon, I think that the deck might just turn into like CS Justimon and just figuring out how to optimize Justimon's abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And they could still try to play a whole bunch of other generic top end stuff to try to keep as much aggression as possible. I'm just pointing to Justimon because one, Ben used it, and two, it can unsuspend, so it's still a very strong card while also having protection from Digimon effects.
Which that alone is nasty.
Yeah, it's just such a good card. That really didn't exactly have a home. So I think like, oh, and it's also Hoodie traded. I just realized that too. So maybe that's the tech card Hoodie actually needed this whole time, was just tech in a Justimon instead of a Venusmon. But yeah, I think out of Hoodie, if I had to pick anything, it's Shakamon. Obviously, I would like Hoodie to go herself, but the answer from a designer's standpoint is Shakamon.
Yeah, there's no point in arguing that one there because Shakamon, it's just too powerful. Even if you take it outside of a Hootie engine and just strictly leave it as Angemon and freaking Shaku, or not Shaku,
And Kilamon?
the evolution of armor. Thank you. And Kilamon, it quite literally just still goes, and I'm gonna go fast and go hard.
Yeah, also from like a designer perspective, you want to try to limit how many choice restrictions you do. You don't want to just throw them out willy-nilly because then it makes it very hard to manage what is paired with what. And for new players coming in who don't quite understand that yet, it's like, and having like a giant list of pair restricted cards, like, no, it's just not smart. It's cool that they implemented it, but they have to use that sparingly for like absolutely broken interactions and not something they just can do willy-nilly.
Yeah.
At least that's my perspective of it. So we're also not going to be talking about any pair restrictions because, again, just for that same reason, like we might as well just hit the card rather than choice restrict it if we could avoid it.
Though the choice restrict would be the logical choice on a lot of this.
I mean, choice restricting anything and everything is like obviously a better idea to keep things more playable. It's just like, okay, choice restrict Hoodie with Shakuamon. Boom. Like it's the same thing as just taking Shakuamon and removing it from the deck, because like Shakuamon can still be played in his own deck or whatever. You just can't play it with the problem card that's making it a problem. But again, that same mentality could be literally for everything. It's just like, yeah. So that's why like just restrict it to one. Just don't even waste our time with choice restricting everything. But I think like obviously Hoodie does have a lot of problematic cards because of how efficient its engine is, and it could pretty much do anything and everything better than most decks can do their own strategy. So it's really hard to just pinpoint one card because, like I said, Chitose, Kisuke, Hoodie, Shakuamon, choice restricting, they're all viable options. But at the end of the day, Hoodie has enough cards to still kind of be somewhat resilient because of how everything is flowing and interacting with each other.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess akin to Hoodie, we should probably talk about Time Strangers, even though it literally just came out. Based on Nationals, Hoodie and Time Strangers were the two most represented decks. They also were in the top four, and well represented in the top 16. So Time Strangers is 100% proving to be problematic. Um, and a lot of the Time Stranger stuff, we're kind of seeing a very similar akin thing to Hoodie, where they're just trying to um, be a very fast and efficient engine. And because you have a whole bunch of different ways to play Time Strangers, and all of them are toxic because of the Time Stranger mechanic, pretty much forcing the opponent to give you a lot of memory, which is a death sentence in of itself, um, isn't necessarily the best way to play around it. Um, so I think the number one Time Stranger card that should get hit is Dan and Yuki.
Agreed.
Dan
There is
Yuki and Cannon Yuki. This card's just gross. This card's so disgusting. Like,
that card is that's not even pointing out our future problems, which we'll get into probably in a little bit on this, but that card should not exist for what's coming.
very much not. Like, the fact that putting the opponent to 4 or more memory just means you don't get a gain memory. Who cares? So what? Like, you just gave me 4 or more memory. I don't need the extra 1 memory because that was the whole point. And the fact that you're always going to have access to its end of turn effect is ridiculous. As we've seen with Hoodie, sometimes playing options for free that also help with your overall tempo and consistency is really good. So that's why, like, the majority of the options Time Strangers is playing is going to be the 3-cost ones, because you have In Between Theater to search, or you have the Sanctuary cards, or the Throne Room cards, or whatever. I think they are Sanctuary, because they all have Sanctuary in their name.
Yeah, it'd be better just to classify them as Sanctuary instead of Throne World cards.
Yeah, so the Sanctuary cards also are 3-cost, and they basically play out a rookie for free, and the majority of rookies in Time Strangers search for cards. So you're playing either a searching tool or a searching tool. So, yeah, and then the future proofing on this card is incredibly piss poor as well. The fact that it also just allows you to use any Time Stranger option as long as you give enough memory is kind of ridiculous, because as we're seeing with the dual cards, we could technically, let's just say in a hypothetical situation, run Beelstar in a Time Stranger deck. So you could do your level 5 DNA shenanigans and then give the opponent 6 memory, use Dan and Yuki to blow up the rest of the opponent's field, and then Digivolve into a Beelstar and be able to attack at the end of the turn, especially if you have the egg that allows you to unsuspend, which also is a really stupid card in of itself, because the unsuspend paired up with the then can attack off of this tamer just means that, like, yeah, I just get a free extra attack. Well, I guess technically it's 1 memory, but it essentially equates to a free extra attack, which is really dumb. Really
It's
dumb.
freaking nutty.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts on that. It is nutty on how well you can do that. And that's not even the worst part. You can also just use Dan and Cannon in upcoming problems when it comes to the 3 Musket deck. Because the BL Star dual card counts as both a 3 Musket option as well as a Time Stranger option.
Yeah,
So it
like,
means you just gain crazy amounts of advantage.
and we already know that there's more dual cards coming, and the next 2 sets are going to be Time Stranger focused. And when I mean 2 sets, I mean BT sets. Because we know 25 is going to be another like 50% Time Stranger set, and then BT 26 is also going to be like around 50% Time Stranger. So there's going to be more dual cards coming, especially if they're being introduced in BT 25. So that just leaves very obvious room for this type of a card to be absurdly broken, because sometimes if the opponent just can't fundamentally play the game or deal with your Digimon, it doesn't realistically matter how much memory you give them if they can't use that to do anything.
Yeah, and with the theory running around with one of our other teammates, Headless, there is a theory that some of the dual cards coming are going to be the Wrath mode and the Hysteria mode for Juno and Jupiter, which means that's just further powering them
Yeah,
with
because
the Dan and Cannon.
we haven't seen any like what they would want to do with mode changes, but I could see the mode changes getting an option attached to them. Although there's the argument for them not to, because they're mode changes. But I guess that just again increases the usability, because then you could digivolve for the normal cost. You could arts digivolve using Dan and Cannon. Um and then you also have the potential to just side digivolve. So it just makes Time Strangers like incredibly more powerful, and they're already one of the best decks that you could possibly play right now. Not to shift away from like getting into the ban and restriction list, but like I feel like what Hoodie and Time Stranger are representing is a really big shift for the game, where the best things you could play are slop decks.
Yeah.
And me and Mark kind of talked about why that is in one of our previous podcast episodes, but to kind of like reiterate, it's the fact that these slop decks just have such a deeper toolbox and can pretty much do anything and everything for no additional like cost to them, other than the fact that, oh, I just can't play outside of archetype stuff, but my archetype already has 2 to 3 times the normal amount of cards because of the trait that it's interacting with. So it's just like, yeah, I could have access at D-Digivolve. I could have access to multi-swinging. I could have access to DP reduction. Like, literally everything baked into one, and that's exactly what Hoodie does, and now that's exactly what Time Strangers is doing. It's just like, yeah, I have insane protection. I have multi-attacking. I have bounce. I have D-Digivolve. I have protection. I have, like, security tech plus. Like, it basically does just everything.
Yeah. It's not a great thing for where the mechanics are going with that. The slop decks are going to be taking over, which can have either both a positive and a negative effect.
Yeah, because
I'm not going to deny
there's
the
multiple
possibility
ways.
of them.
Right, because there's multiple ways to be able to build these slop decks, but because they're so sloppy, you're playing basically your own, not really like sub game. You're basically building your own bubbles, and we're comparing whose bubble is bigger. And obviously slop decks having more things, like more air to fill that bubble, obviously they're going to have more things that they could potentially do, which could counteract a lot of the more traditional or normalized Digimon decks, which is for the most part stack-based decks. And because they can't adapt as much as the slop decks, they're going to be the ones that lose out more often than not. So that's kind of just the trend that we have been seeing with these slap designs. And like, I hate using slap, but like, there's just no realistic other better word for it.
Yeah, it used to just be freaking mixed deck. Oh, I'm playing Angels, I'm playing Fallen. Now it's just, no, we're playing slop. There's no ifs, ands, or buts on that.
Right. And like, I already had a huge issue like way back in the day when they introduced 2-color cards, and now we're at the point where it's just like there's so many 2-color cards that like color is already starting to be irrelevant. It's still somewhat
Oh,
relevant.
it's not long until we hit the 5-color. We go magic on that bitch there.
Well, it's like, oh, you need D-Digivolve? It's like, just again harping back to Sean's Mastimon. My deck needs D-Digivolve. What allows me to D-Digivolve? oh, I'll just play in a 2-color card that my deck can interact with that just so happens to let me de-digivolve. Like, it's honestly that simple. And the deck building restriction on the fact that that card's not an in archetype card is starting to matter less and less because of just the gains that you could get off of it. It's like why Zefika still plays Rapidmon from the advanced deck is because it can de-digivolve and it offers additional protections.
Didn't actually think about that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them tech it in as like a 1 or a 2 of, but like most of the time when you're going out of archetype, it's always going to be a 1 or a 2 of tech. It's never something that you really want to rely on because you won't be able to. I mean, you'll see it more consistently the more copies you run it, but that just makes your deck a little bit worse because of the fact that it is an out of archetype card. So with your in archetype searches, you'll miss more often.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, and we already see this with like fishes, just as an example, adopting Sharkmon because fishes needs de-digivolve. So Sharkmon is a card that now offers them de-digivolve. Like, it's a little bit sad to see just the color flavor of Digimon losing its identity to a lot of these 2-color cards. And it's not like it's hard to use these 2-color cards either.
No, because a lot of them just tend to splash into the very nuanced generic terminology of the game.
Well, it's like the restriction for making Sharkmon easily usable is just using it off of aquatics. So it's like in Aquatic Liberators, like, yeah, he's not a Liberator, but we don't care about Liberator that much. He counts as an aquatic and he digivolves off of aquatic, so there's no real deck building restriction to incorporating a card like this, which is like both a good and a bad thing. But not saying Sharkmon needs to get hit or anything. Just using that as an example on.
No, Sharkmon is one of those examples of that actual balanced card.
It's leaning into the unbalanced territory on why slop decks are so good is because they just have easier access at using more mechanics to counter every other deck that has a more limited pool of mechanics that they can utilize.
Yeah.
So the other Time Stranger cards that I personally would like to see go, like, yeah, the promos are really strong for the free Evos, not gonna lie. But I also think the Haruko and Asuna are also pretty toxic cards in their own right.
Little bit, yeah. The fact that they can actually cycle themselves or a Digimon kind of breaks the game, especially since Asuna can do it from trash.
Yeah, I mean, she discards the card you're going to be obviously rezzing.
Yeah, and that can be kind of problematic, especially if, say, they decide, oh, I'm going to pitch Aegiomon, start a turn, shuffle back Asuna, replay Aegiomon, and play out Asuna again.
Yeah, and Haruko can do something similar. But the fact that like these 2 cards, their trigger condition for playing out a Digimon is at the start of the turn. I think that's the most problematic aspect of these cards. If these cards played out Digimon at the start of the main, way less problematic. But that's literally just because of how a lot of the new age DNA stuff works, where you have like a DNA enabler. So it's just like at the start of your turn, with the Asuna and Haruko, if you set them up properly, you could then set up a Gatomon to then DNA into Sylphimon, and then get an attack at 13k on a level 5 Digimon that you spent 0 memory for, while drawing an additional card, again, before your turn actually is fully started. And then it's going to swing and deal 2 checks against the opponent. And then you hit your unsuspend phase.
Before you even actually fully start your turn.
Right, and then you unsuspend, and the buffs will still carry over because that still technically happened during your turn. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that these cards set that type of gameplay up is incredibly unhealthy, and the only way to play around it is just playing against what Time Strangers wants you to do, which is just give them four or more memory to turn these cards off, or play a floodgate to prevent them from doing that. But as we've seen with floodgates, their usability kind of just varies to basically be mostly unplayable unless you're a deck that's able to reuse your floodgates, which most decks outside of purple literally can't do.
Yeah.
So
Only
I think
reason they
like
can do it in yellow anymore is because Mastimon exists.
yeah, I think like these three tamers are like incredibly problematic. But like obviously the hard part is again like Time Strangers is only going to get better, and what other tools are you going to be giving Time Strangers? Because these cards probably are also not very well future proofed. I'll say.
They are not, considering the more likely ones to be coming next are going to be blue Agio, which is going to be yellow blue, and then green Agio, which is going to be green Agio,
Yeah,
green
yellow
yellow.
green. And
Yeah,
then I know
which
there's
is
like a shadow Agio and a pure gold Agio.
yeah, which will just be pure yellow and black.
But I'm thinking for like what all of the other stuff that they could do with Time Strangers. Like these cards just inherently seem toxic and problematic, which is why a lot of the top Time Stranger decks literally are playing both of them to set up Sylphie DNA plays. Like that is, and I said this earlier, that's like objectively the best thing any Time Stranger deck can do, and it's exactly what they're doing. Is just running a slew of different level 6 Olympus 12s and then just DNA Sylphimon. Like that's basically every Time Stranger deck for the most part. Obviously, you do have like the more dedicated blue engine, which is actually blue Titans and not blue Iliad. So I was slightly off on that, but in terms of where blue's power would be coming from. But
I would
yeah.
actually just call it Star-Crossed Lovers because it's a kind of mix on the good and evil.
I mean, kind of like you're still just going like you're just using a slightly different blue engine to go up into Neptunemon and Venusmon, but like with the DNA setups, like you still have the same level of aggressive play lines, um, just allocated differently. So like there's not really that much of a benefit or reason outside of like tech purposes or maybe matchup purposes to run a mono blue engine when the gains that you could get for just playing all of the Olympus 12s that we have in a single deck and just running Sylphimon DNA engine is like just far superior in my perspective.
Not good to know that.
So I think like you can't really hit both of these tamers, but you also at the same time kind of have to hit both of them. I don't know what they're going to do,
This
but
is actually the point where we would just say there has to be a choice restrict on them.
I don't. The problem is you're still going to be running 5 of them in your deck. Like, or even if you choice restrict one with the other, like you still have 4 of them in your deck. So you could still reasonably set up like hyper toxic and degenerate plays, even just with one of them. Because again, you have a lot of the promo rookies that are digivolving for free, and the only way to counteract that is giving them a lot of memory. So it's like there's there's no real winning with Time Strangers is like kind of what I'm getting at. Like there's a lot that they could do to hit the deck. They can hit the level 6s, which they're not going to do. They can hit Homeros, which they're not going to do. They can hit the
Homeros actually would
promos.
probably be a fair hit along with the Dan and Conan.
As
But
much as I don't like Homeros, I after playing around with Time Strangers enough, I don't necessarily think she's that problematic. She's like the antithesis of what the Time Strangers mechanic is trying to do, except she's like slightly more balanced and less balanced at the same time. Because if you have a Homeros just sitting on your field and you do the whole counterplay to turn off a lot of Time Stranger mechanics, she's still going to gain the memory, she's still going to draw you a card, you just won't be able to activate the end of turn effect. But at the same time, you could just hard play another Homeros and activate the end of turn effect.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think she's more like a lightning rod, if anything. People perceive her to be a bigger threat when the real problem for Time Strangers is Dan and Yuki.
Not to mention, we still have Kunlung and Drossel to eventually come for Time Stranger, and we don't know what they're going to do.
It makes me very afraid because Royal Knights does not need the support, but supposedly they're trying to redux Royal Knights, so I have
Well,
no idea what they're gonna do.
so with the small spoiler from the game, the Royal Knights do play a hard part in the actual Time Stranger, and that's why it's so scary that a Drossel will exist that's Time Stranger.
Well, we also know that EX13 is going to be Time Stranger, like Royal Knight based.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting more, not only just Royal Knight support, which I think at this point a lot of people are sick and tired of seeing, but we're also seeing more like Time Stranger support, which by that time we'll be sick and tired of seeing. But
I'm
stepping
not
away
going to deny that because the Chivalrous Order is supposed to be the tail end, probably where we'll get the Chronomon Destroy mode from.
Yeah, but stepping away from just talking a lot about Time Strangers, I honestly think, like, if anything, they do have to hit the Haruko, they do have to hit the Asuna, and they do have to hit the Danon canon, in order for Time Strangers to be somewhat healthy and reasonable. Because right now it's still just one of the better decks, and it literally just came out. Which brings a lot of like, oh, why are we making this ban and restriction list to begin with if the power creep from the next set just makes everything that they're going to ban obsolete and like there's no reason to. And it's just like, yeah, that's my big fear
So my
is
answer to that is yes.
my big fear is like they still have to hit a lot of the lower tier cards for the decks that were good, because they're still problematic cards. Like that's the plain and simple answer. Even though realistically, yes, the amount of power creep that's been happening in Digimon leaves it so we don't really actually need a ban and restriction list because power creep just replaces pretty
And
much
I'll be right
anything and
back.
everything. But in terms of like going back to like some of the cards that should be banned and restricted but haven't been performing well, looking at Gallantmon, we have Growlmon X Antibody. Um, that card's still gonna be absolutely disgusting in every metric. So this 100% should get hit. Um, and then what are some of the other older cards that should get hit? I'm trying to like remember some of them. Cause like that's how bad the situation has gotten where it's just like I can't remember what are some of the more unreasonable cards because more unreasonable decks have been coming out.
Yeah, agreed on that. Sorry, I had to let out the dogs real quick.
You're good. But yeah, I think Growlmon X Antibody should definitely get hit.
No, that criminal needs to be gone. He doesn't need to get hit to one. He just needs to get out of here. He just needs to go.
Well, this is just a for the most part just a list of cards that should either get banned or hit to one, regardless of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think for that stance, something from Royal Knights also needs to go because they just keep getting better and better. Even though yes, you can make the argument, oh, but Royal Knights didn't make top 16 in nationals. How good could it really be? And it's just like, yeah, but it's still not fun to play. And it keeps getting more support, which is really dumb.
Of
Um,
which the hits for that would obviously either be the Cool Boys or it would be Last Guardian.
there's a lot that they can do. Like obviously, any of the BT20 cards is like the most obvious hit. I don't necessarily think it's Cool Boy. I mean, it could be Cool Boy because we do already have a replacement Cool Boy. It could be Last Guardian because again, we already have like a pseudo replacement Last Guardian. I think the real answer is the BT20 Omecamon because obviously they're not going to hit Omni X. Very obviously. The only issue
No,
with
there's no
hitting,
point to hit that.
yeah, the only issue with hitting the BT20 Omecamon is he does fundamentally change how the deck operates. And hitting him means that you have to change how the deck operates again, because this is the best defensive card in the entire game. Full stop. This is the defensive backbone. Because he's basically a mirror force. Like, once you get down to low enough security, you just play this guy out for free, and then Digivolve into Omnimon X for free, and then wipe the opponent's field for free for them having the audacity to attack you. Granted, like, cards like Vortex Dramon exist, to where it's just like, yeah, you could do your whole thing. I just won't care, because I'm Vortex and I have protection from Digimon effects. So, like, that's kind of like the catch-22, where it's just like, is this actually the hit? I feel like it is, just because a lot of decks still can't out that, just because there are a couple that might be able to. But I do think, like, pretty much anything from BT20 that supports Royal Knights probably is the correct answer.
You can't touch the Omnimon from 13 because that's the base, the foundation. It's what keeps it going.
Yeah, he's their phoned in pre-canned win condition. Like, you can't take that out. But I do think a lot of the BT20 stuff just, like, kind of was just straight up stupid. Like, they could keep all of their Digimon intact. But now that we have another Omekamon, like, hitting their best Omekamon, like, probably is the answer.
Yeah, if it's wanted to one, it would still be fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's all it needs, is, like, you just hurt the consistency on the Mirror Force play, and that's all you really are doing. Because we have, like, tools to make up for pretty much everything that Royal Knights just lost, again, with the new Omekamon and the new Cool Boy, so, like, they still have something to play and something to replace it.
Yeah.
It's just, you don't want those hyper-toxic degenerate things that just bog down the game and make things, I don't want to say more complicated, but just less exciting, knowing that the opponent's trap is set up and knowing you have 0 ways out of it, which is very demoralizing and it feels bad. I mean, granted, seeing it as a one-of and they set it up, it's going to feel bad no matter what, but that's unfortunately the world we live in, with not enough cards getting actually banned. Thank you, HPD to 1. So out of Royal Knights, I do think Omekamon is probably the correct hit. What are some other problematic decks? Let me actually go to my server real quick and look at the meta results of stuff. So Jesmon. I do think something from Jesmon probably could be curved.
It's the obvious choice would be the Gonku X.
It's either the... I'm almost in favor of just the Gonku over the Gonku X. I mean, granted, there's versions of Jesmon that don't play either of them, but I do think, like, out of all of the options that we have, I think, like, maybe the Gonku X from BT20 is the biggest problem, because he also sets up your degenerate combo plays with Jesmon.
A
so,
like, load of protection as well.
The Gonku, or I'm talking BT20 Gonku, my bad, not Gonku X. Because I think if you hate this Gonku, it makes using Gonku X less reasonable, because you don't have good replacements for the BT20 Gonku. Yeah, because there's the BT23 Gonku that's all, like, absolutely 0 play. Yeah, and he's really not doing anything that would enable Gonku X to be stupid. It is I think, like, out of Jesmon, Gonku from BT20 probably is the card to hit. So that way pure Jesmon builds can still do their thing unimpeded. But this just allows you to reduce the usability of Gonku X doing stupid things to just make the game unapologetically unfun and uninteresting. And, like, yeah, okay, you could say, but it's such a good defensive play. And it's just like, no, you're just protecting your offense. It's not really a defensive play. And yes, I do understand there are things that can get out of Ganku X's protection, but again, it doesn't mean that it's not making the game fun. It's making the game less fun. So I think out of all of them, the Gankumon from BT20 is probably the hit. Because other than that, it's like, what? You're going to hit one of their core pieces, which is like Jessmon or maybe a Sistermon, but none of the Sistermons I feel like are objectively a problem. I think it's literally just the combo potential of this Gankumon that is the bigger problem. We already talked about Rocks and Minerals. We already talked about Royal Knights. We already talked about Hoodie. I honestly don't think anything from Omnimon needs to get hit. Like, sure, you can make the argument of Alter S, like the newest one, but Omnimon really isn't putting up that much results, especially right now. So I don't think that is a big problem or a big deal. Kind of similarly to, like, I would like Vademon and Machinedramon to go, but Machinedramon right now is not doing anything either. So, like, is that actually a problem? Probably not. Anything in Imperial? Like, I know they're reprinting a lot of Imperial cards, but, like, Imperial also hasn't really been doing anything recently. Mostly because, like, Pyramidi as a deck basically just nullifies Imperial's existence, which is pretty sad. But I don't... Obviously, the Tamer is probably still the number one hit. Did we get anything from the new set that basically would replace the Tamer? I don't think we did. That's what, Davis? Yeah, Davis. This card's still just kind of insane. So maybe the Davis is the correct play, but like at the same time, like Imperial really hasn't been doing anything. And yes, you could say that this also increases your DNA strats, which is like the whole point of the deck. But like it's literally this new wave of like how DNA is working that's like fundamentally making DNAs also broken at the same time. So I don't exactly know if there's anything in Imperial that really objectively needs to get hit anymore. Like obviously yes, the correct answer is still the Tamer, but I don't know. Let's see what else from some of the top decks. That's top 16. So we already did Gallant. We did. I don't think anything in Beelzebub needs to get hit. I don't think anything in Medusa needs to get hit. At least not yet. Still too early to see. Myotismon. It's just another OTK
No,
loop.
there's nothing wrong with my Otis. He's fine.
I mean, for where, like, again, this is the sad state of things. Like, for where the game currently is, yes, Myotismon looping and OTKing, while it's unapologetically unfun, like, speed-wise, it's not that impressive. And that's kind of, like, why I think, like, Imperial's also fine. Beelz is fine. Like, there's my own qualms with, Leviamon. So I would probably do something from Leviamon still, just because I hate that card with the burning passion of 1,000 suns.
It would be Biting Crush if it's anything from Mavia.
I actually don't think it is Biting Crush. Biting Crush is good, but at this point, Biting Crush is also just still too expensive. And it's none of the Leviamons either. Like, it's something from the Dog Engine, to be honest. And I think like the biggest,
Cerberus?
yeah, a lot of people really don't like Cerberus. A lot of people really don't like Cerberus X. I don't either. Um, like, I hate everything about the dog engine, to be honest. Like, I think the whole thing is just a toxic degeneracy. Cerberus X is obviously one of the big ones, and then so is Dober X. Dober X is also an incredibly stupid card. Like, I wouldn't mind both of them just going away. Let other purple things be viable. Like,
I'm not going to deny that.
I've seen so many decks just dark animal dot whatever. And I'm just like, it's so boring. I hate it.
Just like I'm done with it. I don't want it here no more. Be
I
gone.
it's just too it's overall just too memory efficient. Like, that's the big issue, is the deck is just, for a traditional based purple deck, it is just too efficient. It needs 0 tamers to set up. Everything in your inheritables on your lower levels pretty much gives you memory. So you're not really strapped for memory, so you could make plays even off of 1 memory with the correct setup. And it's still just some of the best generic purple stuff you could do to facilitate any top end. Obviously, certain decks do want their own native stuff to be used. But sometimes that's just not even better than just, yeah, I'm just going to Dober. Like, let me just go up into a Dober. So like I hate this engine a lot. It's been pretty much Purple's plague since EX5. Like 2 years ago, I'm like, no, this shit needs to go. And as far as like, now that I'm thinking about it, reminiscing about older cards that should get hit. We have the Galgamon from BT16. This card's still toxic and stupid. Even though, like, yeah, where's Galaxy?
How is Algamon still toxic?
Just so we know we're gonna get more Galaxy support.
Yeah, it's already obvious, but they're probably going to be more focused in the DS.
We don't know what it's gonna look like. Obviously, yeah, they could make the TS stuff outshine it, but they're still gonna, at the end of the day, be Nightclaw Lightfang support, and that makes this Galgamon still one of the best Nightclaw Lightfang level 4s that they could use.
I mean, I guess.
It's just the tempo. Like, that's the big reason why I hate this card, is because the amount of tempo this card can give, because he just generically will give you 1 free memory, just again makes him incredibly strong. Because we have to think, like, what's the main reasons why Bandai restricts cards in the first place? It's because of really one of 3 factors. The first one, does this enable some hyper-degenerate OTK that's way more oppressive than we reasonably want other OTK decks to be?
Cannons, Kopkov.
Yeah. So, OTK potential. And what is the potential that it is giving that OTK deck? The second thing is speed of the game. So, is this card too tempo efficient, making this deck fundamentally faster than every other deck in the entire game?
I again point more to Dan and Cannon and Hiroko and Asano.
Well, there's a lot of examples of that. Like, that's why they hit all of the 0 cost options except for Tropical Venom, which they now should even start considering hitting. Even though, yes, the big difference between Tropical Venom and everyone else is Tropical Venom needs your opponent to do something. But as we're starting to see, with like tokens and whatnot, we're getting into design space that could still lead to be problematic. For a card like Tropical Venom to stay.
Venom do again?
When
Suspend?
no, it deletes. So when one of the opponent's Digimon is deleted, you gain 2 memory, or technically the opponent loses 2.
Oh, then I can see exactly where the problem is on that one. Vortex.
Yeah, exactly. So
Big battle it.
Well, so there's Vortex that's gonna start abusing it. And then who's to say there's not a token generating deck that is similar to Medusamon, where it's just like, okay, maybe I could tech in a Green Tamer into Medusamon to have access to Tropical Venom to now start gaining memory when I delete my opponent's stuff, which I'm creating for them. Same thing with Leviamon. It's just like, okay, here, I'm going to force you to play out a Digimon. Now that gives me something to interact with, so now I could use Tropical Venom to do that type of stuff. So I do think like Tropical Venom uh
is a worthy hit.
it's a worthy hit just because it fits within the same guidelines as pretty much everything else. Just because we don't have good case uses for it this very moment doesn't mean it isn't going to have one.
Yeah, especially with the fact that we have the freaking decks for Data Squad and Beat Break coming.
Yeah.
Who says they can't abuse it?
I also think like hitting the Galgamon, like backtracking a little bit, because we're going to be getting
A new
Data Squad,
Mirage.
yeah, Data Squad support that comes with a new Mirage, and Mirage is actually still pretty efficient. It's a little on the slower side because we're not playing the Tamer setter, because that's just not good enough.
It's
But
just no point anymore.
yeah, it's well, you ideally want to use your level 6 to set it up so that way you don't have to waste a level 4 slot that's incredibly precious. But still, the fact that Mirage is also going to be getting some support definitely, like between both Nightclaw and Lightfang and Mirage getting new waves of support definitely puts this card back into the spotlight of being one of the better cards to consider hitting for the sake of tempo.
Yeah, but if we were going strictly for sake of tempo, there's a lot more cards that could be hit now and
Oh my god, there's
would help
so
out.
many. Yeah, there's so many, but we're just trying to like pinpoint some of the more current problems based on the current
So,
environment.
falling into the current and future environment, Gundramon.
I don't think so. Let Three
It plays
Muskets.
Beelstar for free.
I understand that. That's their like let the problem is then you still have to have a Digimon to Arts Digivolve, and setting up a second body for that deck is incredibly difficult. So, like, yeah, they could use the Beelstar option part for free, but they're most likely not going to be Arts Digivolving. And that's what makes the dual cards and playing them for free incredibly broken. Time Strangers just can easily set up any level 5 that they want, which is what makes it broken with Dan and Cannon, is because, okay, I can set up the Arts Digivolve because my level 5 quality is also incredibly high.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of some of the other stuff that we have seen from the previous formats. Again, I don't think Omnimon needs anything to be hit. He already has consistency issues as is. We already kind of hit. Lightclaw and Nightfang is again pretty hard to hit. We already technically hit a card from it. It's just a more all-encompassing card. I don't think Virus Imperial needs to get hit anymore. Like obviously the promo is the stupid card, either that or
Hit
the
Wormmon.
Wormmon. Like I think maybe you just hit Wormmon just to stay face, but I highly doubt it actually would get hit.
Now, an actual Imperial, it's murder the other two.
Yeah, like, so obviously the correct answer is the promo Shadramon. That's the card that's enabling the toxic degeneracy of their combo anyway. But like, if you're trying to give them a love tap, I guess the BT16 Wormmon is probably the hit.
Yeah.
But the deck is basically dead in the water because
that
Vortex.
Same thing, the next one you'd hit would be the 16 freaking Salamon.
Yeah, but now you're forcing them to play a less optimal card. Like, which is fine because that creates deficiencies.
No, yes and no. The fact that starter deck Nyaro is a draw and pitch on swing kind of makes that point a little bit meh.
Yeah, but then again, you're changing the deck to be less efficient to incorporate a tool that they had just lost. So, like, I do think that the Wormmon is probably the correct hit if they were to hit anything from Virus Imperial, but I also think from a meta perspective, again, this is why power creep is an absolute bitch. I don't honestly think that Virus Imperial is reasonably playable anymore. Like as his purple deck, I do not think he is good enough to play in this current environment. When you have shit like Vortex Dramon, where it's just like, okay, I'm going to turbo up into Vortex, and then your entire combo and engine is basically fundamentally turned off because of my level 7. Unplayable. Like, ungodly unplayable. Then you also have, like, Magnetic that's also helping keeping this card be quelled, because, like, it's the same type of thing. I turbo up into my level 7, I have Fragment, just one Fragment with the correct inheritables will just fuck up your combo, and then you basically lose the game on the spot.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the Vortex, because Vortex has a number of Digimon that says all turns, as long as I win this battle, I'm going to gain that memory and screw you over.
Yeah, well, also Vortex's protection just, again, makes it, like, so Imperial can't hit that high in numbers to begin with, and then on top of that, you're not playing Digimon by effect, so his Floodgate ability is kind of just pointless.
You are playing Digimon by effect.
When you're in a Vortex Dramon, not really.
Oh, no, not Vortex. After you hit Vortex, you're just kind of...
Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. The situation where you turbo into Vortex fighting against Virus Imperial literally cannot play their game because Vortex Dramon exists on the field. So, like, that's kind of the example of, like, power creep is, like, just this giant bitch, where it's just, like, you had a very strong and reasonable deck that is now rendered completely unplayable because of a newer, stronger deck that just hard counters everything you just did.
Yeah, it's kind of why Massimon is kind of sitting in a bunch of decks that shouldn't belong. Because as long as security is touched, yo ho ho, I can mess you up.
Yeah, but Massimon's like her own, she's her own story. Because most, like, thinking about it, most DNA decks were literally almost unplayable outside of Imperial Dramon all the way up until BT16. BT16, when they changed how they wanted to approach DNAs and how to get into DNAs better, definitely was a huge game changer. And it started with the Davis and Ken from BT16, like this group of tamers. It's just obviously Imperial had the support to actually use theirs, where the other tamers didn't have the support to use theirs. So that's why this kind of stood up above the rest of the others. And then basically every other way that we have on setting up DNA, for the most part, kind of follows, like, this templating. So, like, this templating is obviously proven to be highly problematic in terms of actually being able to effectively use DNAs. And DNAs is already proven to be incredibly problematic because it resets the state of the Digimon, as we're seeing with Hoodie. So, like, it creates this weird, like, contention and tension in how the balancing of the game is. And this is where, like, my philosophy of, I think Bandai doesn't care about balancing anymore, is kind of just ringing true, where it's just like, why should they care? Like, honestly, what is their incentive of caring about balance? Like, sure, yes, the ban list has to grow and grow and grow, which is why I pushed for more ban and restriction updates. But, again, with power creep being at its all-time highest in terms of, like, the gaps and jumps in power, they don't really have any reason to keep their game balanced, because the next set's going to come along and then just power creep everything else that wasn't playable out of the game. So they don't have an incentive of actually balancing their game, because as we're stating, like, there's a whole bunch of cards we're not even thinking about or talking about in this episode that many
older cards that could just...
Yeah, that are still problematic cards that could and should be looked at and considered for a ban and restriction based on Bandai's previous explanations and reasonings, but are not, because power creep is moving too fast for those cards to stay relevant. So, like, yes, this is the exact same argument on why a lot of people are championing for cards to be coming off the list, but that's why I think cards can't come off, is because as power creep grows and grows and grows, and yes, it's keep being more condensed to the newer stuff, and the newer stuff is just trying to be slot based stuff rather than like actually supporting um a specific deck with a specific design intention going into it. Um that's kind of just like where it just becomes very difficult. So they put
Yeah.
themselves in a corner, which is why I'm not expecting this ban restriction update to be huge, even though it reasonably should be. This ban and restriction update for me is going to tell me the direction on what the rest of the game is going to look like going forward.
It's also going to be a very big turning point for a lot of players of if they should even continue to still invest in this card game or if it's time to jump ship. So
I I'm not going to flat out agree with that statement, but I'm not going to deny that that isn't what where a lot of people are at, is this holding and waiting position on, do I believe in Bandai to make the game healthy enough for me to want to continue playing it? Because obviously if we're talking
I was
about
more pointing
games,
out our teammates' quote on that one.
no, I know. But I'm sure more people are in that same type of position than just them.
Yeah.
I'm technically in that position, but
Same
um
here.
I'm more so waiting on what the mobile app is gonna look like to kind of see where the future of Digimon holds. And like that's partially why I stopped playing competitive, is because like I don't care enough to constantly keep up. Like it's a care thing and it's a money thing. Like I don't have the money to just constantly keep up with the meta and buy the cards to compete, and then compete in something I'm not entirely having a whole lot of fun with because the game magically ends turn 2, turn 3. Like I don't,
And that can be an entirely different video right there.
it very much could be. And I've made those types of videos before. Like they're arguably some of my more popular videos on like the actual issues with Digimon, and going back and looking at those videos, the problems were never solved. There, Bandai's just been power creeping the shit out of the game and hoping that the power creep basically outweighs the balance.
Yeah, that's not a sustainable model for sure.
It's not, because then we get into buddy fight situations where it's just like, yeah, we're on FTKs, and the game is over in a single turn, and that's what Yu-Gi-Oh is also, is like the game literally is over in a single
Yu-Gi-Oh
turn.
is about to hit the turn 0 kill. They have to freaking swat that.
They can't. Like that's the only way they could fix their turn, like their first turn problem, is by having interaction on turn 0. So
Yeah, but
that's the problem, is like they reasonably can't. It's either we're going to keep the status quo, which makes the game stale and stagnant and boring, or we introduce something that allows more interactions to happen, which arguably
and
again
breaks
then
the
makes the
freaking
game
game.
faster. Yeah, it arguably makes the game faster. So it's just like, we're with Digimon, we're going to be hitting this power ceiling where it's just like, where are we actually going to go from here? Like Bandai's already said turn 2 OTKs is problematic even when there's a slim chance of it. And now thanks to like Maruki and Time Stranger OTK, it's more consistent now. So
Yep.
if that's a problem, but or if Fenrir Lucamon's a problem, but Maruki OTK isn't a problem, like where's their philosophy on what balance even is? And if I can't, as a player, discern what their balance is and what they define as balanced and what they intend out of the game to look like, how am I, the player, supposed to do that? Like, oh, maybe I am just supposed to turn 2 OTK, or maybe I am supposed to turn 3 lethal my opponent. Like, is that what they actually want out of the game?
At this point, is who knows? We can't really know what's in the mind of the CEOs.
Right. So I'm just looking through to see if anything from like the last Bandai data set that we haven't really, if there's anything from there we haven't touched. Outside of Omnimon, we really haven't like touched anything. But again, I don't think Omnimon needs to get hit.
Well, with the new Omnimon, it The 8001 is going to be one of those kind of turn point periods for new players because the fact that, yes, you get smaller boxes for same price, but guaranteed cards in them, it's kind of a bad business model for that. But you also kind of get 5 very competitive decks coming out of that box, you
I
know?
mean, you're also going to have to invest a lot in opening that box unless you just buy singles. But, like, I think what they're doing with
That's it.
8001 right now, outside, like, we just need pull rates. Like, all that they said was great. It's fine. Sure, there's some really shitty reprints that of cards that don't need to be reprinted at all. But
Ruin
based
mode,
on,
cough, cough.
well, no, so they should reprint Ruin Mode, but I digress. Like, there's Shine Greymon from BT13. Fucking unplayable card. Does not need a reprint. Nobody's asking for a reprint of that. In fact, you already are giving us 2 other Shine Greymons in the set. Why do we need this third Shine Greymon that's, like, objectively bad? Doesn't make any sense, just as an example. And they're doing that just to try to allow those 5 decks for new players to actually be able to pick it up and be able to build it, even if they're missing the better cards. So, like, I understand why they're doing that. And I think, like, that's pretty good because as an advocate for accessibility, I think that's fantastic. Having a single booster box where you actually can build completed decks out of, for the most part, is incredibly decent.
Completed meta decks on top of that.
Yeah, like, it's incredibly decent. Like, I think 8001, as of right now, looks to be a very good product. It's just we need to know pull rates in order for us to actually put that finalized stamp on, yes, this is a good product, or no, this is just as dog shit as RB01.
RB was, let's face it, RB was not the way to go.
No, then they fucked that one up really hardcore on every single front, and it almost irreparably damaged the entire game. But I've harped on that one enough to where I don't need to repeat that much. But
Yeah.
so is there anything else that you could think of to kind of start wrapping things up that you think should be banned or restricted based on what's going to be coming out, what's currently doing well, and whatnot? Because we haven't really touched on any Liberator decks outside of Rocks and Minerals, but I don't know if there's actually anything in any of the Liberator decks that really warrant a ban and restriction. I mean, yes, there are. Don't get me wrong. There 100% are. But based on what we've seen with, like, Magnadramon, or not Magnadramon, Magnamon X Antibody from BT16, they're not going to act on some of the stronger shit. No.
No, in fact, some of the stronger stuff is just going to still stick around.
Right. It's like, is there
Until
anything in Medusa that you could objectively hit that would be a good enough of an impact on Medusa outside of the level 7? Like, there's not a tamer that they could
it
hit.
would be, no, it would actually, it would be a tamer. It's the Owen that gives the ability to attack immediately.
Yeah, but
Okay.
because we've already been using him for so long, and he's not objectively doing anything, like, overtly wrong other than just granting an attack at the end of the turn,
It's
which
attacking Pierce, and it's when he security's removed.
that's so negligible. Like, as unfortunately as that is to say, like, it's so negligible because there's so many other things that could attack at the end of the turn that it just doesn't really seem like a card that stands out and says, yes, this is a problematic card.
The other one would definitely be Starako, but as we've already gone through, they're not touching the 7s.
No, they're most likely not going to touch the 7s. They're not going to touch anything of the new stuff. Like, pretty much almost everything Liberator seems really safe to me in terms of, like, yeah, they're probably not going to hit any of that. Outside of obviously the one
If
exception being
they
Tumble.
hit something other than though what I've said, it would probably be the emblems.
They're not going to hit the emblems. If they haven't hit the memory boosts or any cards like memory boosts, they're not going to hit the emblems. Like, that's part of the problem is, like, the decks are too, there's not enough tools to where losing one would really impact the deck because they would just no, I'm saying this wrong. There's so few tools that they would rather just not hit any specific tool that isn't egregiously being abused to such a high degree that warrants a ban and limit.
Yeah.
Because everything
Because
from EX 11 feels like it's pretty much trying to catch all the Liberator decks up with the current meta environment, and obviously some of them
and even
feel
then,
short.
some of them are falling short.
Right. I guess
Like the novel characters definitely fall short. Out of all the novel characters, the only ones that really are standing out now are the Susan A, because she's able to just say you can't play the game as long as as long as you have less sources than her.
yeah, but there's so much
Uh,
easy removal that like I don't even think that that's that big of a problem.
no, I'm just saying playability out of the novel characters.
Yeah.
Winner is another one that has playability because the simple fact it has the CS problematics for its OTK, and then you have Heavy, which can just flood its boards so fast and have rush that you really just can't do anything about it.
There's a lot you could actually do about it. That like after playing enough of EX11, heavy metal lives or dies based on that new tamer. If they see that new tamer, they're in a pretty okay position. If they don't see that new tamer, they're basically as good as they were before that tamer even existed, which is not good at all. I think like
Yeah,
the one card we're probably skirting over is Protoform. I think Protoform
I'm
definitely is
not.
a problematic card.
Why would Protoform be a problematic card?
Zero cost option that reduces Digivolution cost.
For an
Also,
animation
when a
deck?
card is removed, like when your Digimon would be deleted, doesn't even have to be deleted, but when it would be, then you basically get a recover one. This is a card that's been abused in every X antibody deck since its inception.
Eh,
I think it is too strong. You see it in bees, and
I
bees is incredibly annoying. You see it in, like I said, almost every single X antibody deck that's using an X
yeah,
antibody engine. Like you see it in Gallantmon, you see it just almost everywhere. Um,
Gallantmon, Black War.
yeah.
You know,
Technically, Guru
I
would use this card. Even like,
Levia.
yeah, anything that just has the X antibody trait. This is basically a Hammer Spark. Sure, it
I
forces the
can
evolution,
see.
but like that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I can see where you're talking on it.
I
And
just think this card just needs to go. It outlived its usefulness. EX5 was one of the most power crept sets in the entire game. I think it's just time for it to go.
so the only problem with that is the fact that it got a reprint coming in 8001. So I don't think that'll be hit at all.
I don't think it's safe from it because like if you think about 8001, they would have had to plan that set and finalize it before they made the ban and restriction announcement. So, yes, there are probably cards in 8001 that are most likely going to end up getting on the ban and restriction list because they also, let's not forget, reprinted Growlmon X Antibody. That card was stupid. They also even printed cards that already are limited. So, it tells me that obviously they don't care if a card is going to get limited or already is limited. If it's something that needs a reprint or is a popular and powerful enough card, would demand a reprint regardless of a limitation or not.
Hmm.
So I think like Protoform being in that zero cost option suite, basically completing the Centepla, because there's 7 colors, because white is now technically a color. Um, this is basically the white zero cost tempo option that just
Yeah,
so happened to
yeah,
be used in other decks because of the X antibody trait.
yeah. I could see it. I could see it. Do I fully agree with it? No, obviously not. But I do get your point of view on it.
Yeah. So outside of protoformance, there are like any other like specific outliers that you think would like actually objectively be deserving of a ban and restriction? Because like there's probably more that we're not even thinking about. Because like we said, everyone's list is going to be different.
Omnimon X.
I mean, you can't because of like Omekamon. Like Omnimon X, yes, is arguably the card to hit if you really wanted to neuter Royal Knights, and take out a generic win con for a lot of decks. Obviously, that is the number one pick, but they're not going to do that because he's used in so many decks. And if you're going to hit Royal Knights, you might as well hit a card that's more directly specifically for Royal Knights. Because we haven't seen that many generic staples outside of the zero cost options in Ice Wall get hit. Most of them
Yeah.
have been for a specific deck because it's being abused in a specific way.
And there's not much we can do about it. At that
Right.
given point.
So,
So I can see points and everything, yeah. I still think Omnimon X deserves the hit. I wholeheartedly hate that guy.
I mean, there's a lot of generic staples that need to get hit. I hate Ruin Mode. I hate Medieval Gallantmon. I hate, like you said, Gallantmon X or Omnimon X Antibody. I hate Gallantmon X Antibody. That card's being abused in a lot of different DNA shell, or not DNA, X Antibody shells.
Not to
Like,
mention Galaxy Shells, too.
yeah, I hate a lot of generic hyper powerful cards. I don't like Hexablaumon for that reason. Also, like there's a lot of those types of cards, and then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's a lot of cards that just randomly gain memory. It's just like you have BT14 Shamanmon, you have a lot of Guilmon stuff that gain memory. Like there's just a lot of free incidental memory gain that just are also being used to accelerate the pace of the game. Oh, with that, there is one more card that should get hit. Um,
Which one are you thinking?
Puppets level 5, Karakurumon from EX9. Like that card is the antithesis of tempo, like the problem with Digimon itself. Like this card represents everything that's wrong with what Bandai thinks the speed and tempo of the game should be. And I'm using should very loosely. Like this card is just absolutely kind of nuts. Like it's incredibly poorly designed.
I'm not gonna deny that at all.
Yeah, free evos into a level 6 Digimon is dumb. And you could say, "Oh, but you have to delete a Digimon." You don't. Like the deleting a Digimon is negligible
It's
because
always been
Puppets
optional.
well, Puppets just plays Digimon out for free anyway. So it's just like off of the promo shushu, you get a token. Cool. Might as well have just never existed because you're just using that token to sacrifice it and minus 3k and then digivolve into a level 6 Digimon for free. Then you have the new level 4 that sets up the Mirai Tamer, and the Mirai Tamer sets up a Digimon. So again, same situation, just using one extra card.
Yeah, they pretty much are able just to straight up jump into everything, and it's just you can't really do anything on Puppets now because they're just gonna pop off, end up in their big I can't be moved guy, and just sit there and stare at you.
Yeah, like even though Puppets is in a lot better of a position than they've ever been. I don't know how meta competitive they're gonna end up being, but I think from a game design standpoint, there is no level 5 in the entire game that lets you do what Karakuru does. Um,
I mean, we get close with Lady and Angie and Mastimon, but that's just getting close.
yeah, that's getting close. Most cards, um, yeah, most level 5 Digimon will not allow you to get a absolutely free evolution into your higher stage Digimon.
Yeah.
Um, most of them don't. The only one, yeah, they don't let you just digivolve for free into level 6s most of the time. Diaboromon is one that does, but he requires specifically a Diaboromon token. So if you don't have the Kara X, you're not doing it. But like with the way that Puppets works, you're doing it more consistently than you're popping a Diaboromon token. I'll say that.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking at all of the level 5s, and outside of like some absurdly broken DNAs, none of them outside of Infamon really let you digivolve for free into a high stage Digimon.
Eh, at this point, we're just kind of on the back end of everything, so we
Yeah,
gotta just see how it plays out at this point.
I guess technically the Talmon also is, but that's because of the egg from the advanced deck. Actually,
Yeah,
is there anything from Sakuyamon that's worth getting hit outside of the egg? Because we all know that the egg is probably the biggest mistake. I mean, the Talmon that's multi-attacking, it's fine. I don't objectively think this card's a problem. Uh, it's just a good card. It's obviously broken because of the
realistically,
egg.
Sakuyamon is actually kind of just sitting in that kind of center space to where there's points of yes, there's some stuff that can be hit, but 90% of their stuff, not really.
Yeah,
Kind
I
of just
honestly
that
just think it's the
space.
Vixie egg. Like the Vixie egg is the only like real problem card to
Both
Sakuya.
of them are kind of the problem because they both involve interaction that just accelerates Sakuya even further. I guess you could make an argument
Well, so
for
the
hitting
the
like Rika,
Talmon,
but
so the Talmon without the egg is not giving you a free evolution when you attack most of the time. And I'm saying most of the time because they could end up printing like Digivolution plugin S type situation. Um,
yeah,
where it's just like, yeah, it's just a card that does enable me to evolve. Um, but I don't think the new Talmon in of itself is inherently letting you evolve because you're locked into just using the new cards, which there's only so many of.
yeah, and that's kind of where there's some arguments with that. You can make an argument for like the Rika, but that's a negligible argument, if that.
Yeah, I don't think Rika is there.
But
Rika's not nearly that powerful or problematic to where I think it should get hit.
other than that, there's nothing really in Sakuya that is really a problem now. They swatted the problematic card pretty early on with the green plugin.
Yeah.
So
No, I think it is just honestly the Viximon egg is the only problematic card in Sakuya. That's still seeing like meta play right now. Let me hop
yeah,
over to Eggman's website and see if there's any last decks that we feel like would be deserving of something. Um, I I don't really think there's anything that like would need our hardcore attention at this moment. Like that we haven't really touched upon. So,
yeah,
but the sad thing is, if we look at our list, we've hit almost 20 cards. Like, that's how bad the game is. And obviously, based on their wording, there's more cards that we could be pointing to and hitting. But just like
okay,
on a casual basis, like, even if you play around with some of the stuff where it's just like, okay, maybe not ban 3 Time Stranger cards, ban 3 Time Stranger Tamers. Like, we're still at like 17 cards, which is higher than last time. And this is on the light side. So like even if you take out like let's just say Doberman X just to do one thing from each deck type of thing. Like we're still at 16 cards. That's more than last time.
yeah.
Like, there's still a lot of issues with Digimon that need to be ironed out that Bandai very clearly isn't ironing out fast enough.
And I think it's just the fact that they just don't care anymore.
That's so far, that's my vibe. Like, I don't think Bandai, with 7 sets a year, this year having 8 sets, plus supplemental products like starter decks, LM sets, and all that stuff, they're just printing so much that the designers can't reasonably balance their cards. They literally cannot balance their cards. Magic has literally just proven this to us, and I keep harping back on it, but like when you print too much, you can't check your work as quickly because the designers have to move on to the next thing the second that they're done.
Yeah.
Which is why games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And even Magic admitted this, like, okay, we're printing too much shit. The only way to counteract some of these issues, because we're not checking our homework, because we can't check our homework, is to just do more bans and restrictions. And then you don't get ginormous lists like this where it's like 20 cards that reasonably could get hit.
Yeah.
So, huh. Yeah.
We still pointed out quite a lot, but that's up for you viewers. Go ahead and let us know what you guys think should be hit.
Yeah, we always would love to hear your thoughts and opinions as far as this type of subject matter, because it is very opinionated. And like, yes, you could, yeah, you could back up your opinions with some facts, because that's generally what I like to do. Actually have logic to not only just my own thought processes, but to try to guesstimate other people's thought processes based on previous things that they've said or done. So that's why I think like Bandai doesn't necessarily care as much about balancing, because if we look at everything that they have said, that is a problem. They're printing things that are 5 times worse than cards that were banned a year or 2 ago. So,
yeah.
Like, obviously they're not learning their lesson. They're doing this more often, and more things are breaking the more sets that they're printing, because there's less checks and balances, so to say.
Kind of feels like we broke the break and now we're just speeding through.
Yeah, we're like, if the game continues on this path, I am honestly very scared on what it's going to look like in a year from now. Like, I do not think... Yeah, because we're already on consistent turn 3 OTKs, and Bandai's 100% okay with that. Like, they're okay with the game ending in 2 to 3 turns per player. Which, to me, is, like, kind of scary. It's just like, I get it, you want events to go faster. You don't want people to sit there and take 50 minutes playing out a best of 3 game. You want it to be quick, snappy, and over with, even though like specific turns, because of the amount of interactions, do take like 5-10 minutes per turn. That's still kind of crazy to think about, like on your big power turn. So like, yep. Where are we actually going to be going from here is the big question, and that's why, again, to reiterate, I think this ban and restriction update is going to be one of the most important ones. But I don't think the game is going to be dying. It's just, as a longtime player, the game is losing what was interesting about it for me as a player. Obviously, I still like the IP. I'm still going to continue to play the game. It's just my relationship with the game is going to change based on what they have to say.
Agreed on that.
So, I think that's a good place to stop. So, because I know this is a little bit longer of an episode. So thank you everyone for making it all the way to the end. Once again, we appreciate everyone who actually does, and all of you listeners. And with that, we hope to see you all in the next episode. Later.
Yes, sir.